All right, so I'm going to try and cover chapter 1 as fast as I possibly can. And I had another video and it was like 2 hours long. Can't do it to you. So I'm going to try and hit this as fast as I can, and then let's move forward. The biggest thing is understanding, what are we doing in this class? It's critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Taking in new ideas and being comfortable with changing what we thought originally, right? That's the whole point. And I'll show you a video of that in a little bit. But the whole point here is recognizing the fact that the more information we get, it's okay to change our minds, okay? All right, truest definition is to figure out what we believe and why, and then consult outside information and change our views accordingly. All right, you just need to be mindful of that. When we talk about definitions, we will be using the book. Book's definition is someone who uses specific criteria to evaluate reasoning. I'll talk about that in a second. To form positions and to make decisions. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to make the right decision. I guess if you could say there's such a thing as right and wrong. I don't know. Anyway. All right, I'm going to go really quick over vocabulary. Argument. It is not a quarrel. It is not a fight between two people. It is a conclusion that you come to about an issue supported by reason, right? You're going to have a reason. And we'll talk about reasons in a second. You'll see in the quiz at the end of this what different types of reasons we're looking at. For a conclusion is a position that you have on an issue, right? Which is also called a claim or an opinion. We'll talk about that in a second. In research, the meaning and specifics of the data is interpreted by the researcher. You come to a conclusion based on the information that you gather, right? Based on the reason. Okay, and then an issue. It's really important to recognize what an issue is. It's the question or the subject that is under discussion, right? So the issue is an issue on a topic, right? On a thing that you're going to be having a discussion about. And the reasons are statements of evidence given to support the conclusion, right? So statements of evidence for the conclusion or reasons. Okay, I just want you to recognize that because you are going to be using the vocabulary in your reading responses, and I want you to make sure you're using reason right. Don't say, well, the reason why I did this, that's not a reason, okay? We'll give you some more examples in just a little bit. Again, an argument is a conclusion about an issue supported by certain reasons, okay? I do have a little formula. If you look at our lecture notes, you'll see argument equals issue plus conclusion plus supporting reasons, okay? I'll give you that's how you figure out what an argument is. Now, an opinion, all right, is actually missing the supporting reasons. The difference between an argument and an opinion is an argument has the supporting reasons, the opinion does not. So it'd be argument is an issue with an issue with a conclusion and supporting reasons. An opinion is an issue and a conclusion, but with no supporting reasons. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. Okay. Let's see. So an issue is what we are arguing about. It is a thing that is being addressed. Okay. It is best set as a question. Okay. Let's see here. The issue must be something that can be debatable. Okay. It's the question or subject that is under discussion, and we don't argue with kooks, meaning if it's somebody who's obviously very much not going to even be willing to listen, they're so far out there you can't even get them back. You know what I mean? Kooks like, the earth is flat. And it's like, well, let me show you all this, evidence to prove that it's round. It's flat. You're like, all right, kook, I'm not going to be able to talk to you, so we got to move forward. So that's just something to be mindful of. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to kind of scroll through. I'm scrolling through notes. I'm trying to make this as painless as possible, so you're going to have to forgive me on that. Okay, so the difference between an issue and a topic. Now, the topics are ideas or the subjects, right? So the topic is the idea. Alpo might be an example of that. You take a look in the book, you're going to see it there. Topics become issues when a question or a controversy is introduced. And again, the topic would be Alpo. Alpo is the topic. The issue is whether or not you should feed Alpo to your dog. Alpo is the topic. The issue is whether you should feed Alpo to your dog. All right. I hope that makes a little bit of sense for you. Let's see here. Scroll down a little bit. I'm trying not to give you 2.5 hours of lecture, so trust me on this. If you're going to be happy I did it this way. Okay, so one thing to be mindful is emotions in arguments. Again, we're not talking about quarrels and we're not talking about fights. What we're talking about is an argument, right? The more emotional the reaction to the issue, the more likely the issue will be lost. Meaning, if you have too much emotion within the argument, at some point you're going to lose the point of the argument. Okay, so be really mindful of how you are approaching an argument, right? A point of view on an issue. Okay, all right. So when it comes down to the real problem, sometimes the basic issue can become fragmented into different sub-issues so that people are no longer discussing the same question. Okay, this is what happens when, again, you throw in emotions, and then once you start doing that, you start pulling away from the main point of what you're trying to conclude. You're trying to come to a conclusion, all right? Emotions pull us away from the issue, and emotions are rarely based on logic. The goal here in this class, and I'll push this quite a bit, is to make sure that we keep following logic, our logic point of view, right? Okay, let's see what else. Okay, I'm going to scroll through here. Okay, so conclusion. When we talk about conclusions, and when you use this as a vocabulary word, do not say in conclusion, because that's not at all what a conclusion is in this sense of how we are using it. Okay, so when you're using the vocabulary word, the conclusion is the stand that you take on an issue about a topic. Okay, and you are free to rewind this as many times as you need in order for that to make sense. I get it. Go back to the notes, you're going to see it there too. Okay, so a conclusion is the stand that we take on an issue at hand. Okay, that's the whole point of what a conclusion is. Let's see here. Don't forget that that conclusion is based on a claim that is supported by evidence. All right, and when we talk about evidence, we're talking about reasons and premises. And we'll talk about premises in the future. For now, just kind of walk with me on this one. Okay? All right, so again, conclusion is position on an issue plus the reasons and the premises. Okay? Critical thinking, all right, when we talk about critical thinking, is an opinion with substance. So you can have an opinion about a thing, right? But the opinion, if it's going to be an argument, is going to need those supporting reasons in order to come to a conclusion. Okay? For me, I like to look at it as a math problem. You'll see it in the notes, and to me, that's how it makes sense, because then I can go, okay, what piece is missing? Again, the opinion's missing that, the reasons, the actual substance to it. Okay. And again, do not confuse a conclusion with how you end an essay. And if you've ever had my English 2, you know I hate when you put in conclusion, it's your last sentence. We already know it's your conclusion, or your last paragraph. We already know. You don't have to tell me again. Okay, please go back to page 8 for critical thinkers and how they exhibit important qualities. Majority of it is intellectual humility. To be a good critical thinker, you have to recognize that you don't know everything. I have 2 master's degrees. I've been teaching for a long time. I can tell you, I definitely don't know everything. There was a time when I was 18, I totally thought that I did. I did not. Lots of life experience has taught me that. Lots of education has taught me that. Please be mindful of that as you move forward within this class. Don't make assumptions. Just kind of use what the information is that is being handed to you specifically from the book. We'll go from there. All right, let's keep going. Again, I'm trying to fly through this, y'all, so you don't have to painfully watch me talk for 2.5 hours. I'm going to have to keep repeating that because I keep looking down, and I don't like that when I do videos. Okay, so go ahead, and on page 11, one thing I'd like you to do is take a look at the text messages that were going back and forth between 2 people. And now my question to you is, how realistic were those texts, right? Is that a way that you actually communicate with your friends? And sometimes, yeah, if you're like me, like, I kind of like to walk it through. For some people, they're like, no, that's not at all how I have text communications. You tell me. All right. Are you the person more likely or less likely to walk through reasons to do something with a friend? Or do you just, like me, bail and be like, I don't really have a reason, I just don't want to go? Well, I guess that's a different type of reason. Okay. All right. So, conclusions have different types of definitions. You might see where it might be a claim, right? So claim is also a conclusion. Viewpoints, positions, opinions, and a stand, like that's where I stand kind of dialogue. Let's see here. Practice for you. This would be a really good practice for you. If you go to page 9, questions 1 through 5, I'd love you to take a minute. You can pause me just for your own exercise, just so that you can recognize what the conclusion of an argument is. First and foremost, find the issue. What is the issue? What is being asked? Okay, what's the issue? And what position is the author or speaker taking? So that's the first thing you want to find. And then 2, look at the beginning or the ending of the paragraph or the essay. You're going to find out what the issue is based on that. And then look for the conclusion indicator words, where they say things as therefore, so, thus, and hence, and so forth. Okay? All right. What else do we have here? All right. Let's get back to reasons. Okay. When we talk about reasons within this class, we are talking about statements that provide support for the conclusion. So we just kind of spent a few minutes on what that conclusion is, but the reasons are the statements that are providing support for said conclusion. You come to that conclusion because of these reasons. What are those reasons? What are those? It's evidence, right? It's well, you can't really prove things, but evidence, research, data, those are reasons for you to come to a conclusion. All right, that's what I'm looking for when I look for reasons. Okay, so and again, reasons are statements that support the conclusion, right? So statements could, and the best kind of reasons, again, evidence, data, research, things that really are tangible to some extent versus an opinion where you don't have any of that. You want to actually be able to say this reason, it's not emotional, it's data-based, that's how I'm coming to my conclusion, okay? Let's see here. Let's go to, okay. When it comes to decision making, I think you saw that in the text messaging. Usually it's a dilemma between 2 or more alternative actions. Like you have 2 things to decide on. How do you make this decision on an issue, right? Remember we talked about that issue. What's the thing? What's the topic? And here's the issue. Again, so we would say a decision would be whether or not I feed Alpo to my dog, okay? Well, an argument could be you should feed Alpo to your dog because research has shown that it helps your dog live a long, happy life. Okay? So the argument is you should feed Alpo to your dog, right? The issue is should you feed, right? Should you feed Alpo to your dog? The topic is the Alpo, and the conclusion is yes, based on the reasons, which is the data shows, right, that it is shown that in research the dog will live a long, happy life. So, okay, hopefully I'm beating this into your head enough to where you go, oh, it makes so much sense. If not, that's why we have the book. You can always go back and you can check my lectures too, or my lecture notes. Okay, so it helps to make a list as well if you're trying to make decisions. Maybe all this research shows, really good stuff for Alpo, but then Purina kind of has the same thing. Like, what's the difference? Maybe one is a cost difference that matters. Maybe one has a different ingredient that you prefer. This is how we make decisions, okay? All right. So take a look on page 12 and 14 for examples of how you can come up with some decision-making methods, right? Okay, so let me go back to my notes really quick while I got you here. Make sure I covered everything because I'm flying through this. I could not, in good conscience, make you sit that long. I think 15 minutes is good. Okay, so let's do a quick reiterating what we got. The argument is a conclusion. Remember, so it's a conclusion that you come to about an issue that's been supported by reasons, right? So you can make an argument for Alpo, again, based on an issue, which is should you give your dog Alpo. The conclusion is yes, I should because of the reasons, which are the data and research that says you should because it's good for your dog, okay? We could go into hours and hours of discussion on the information and where you're getting it, blah, blah, blah. Let's just say we're going to go to reputable sources to find that information, okay? All right, and again, argument's not a quarrel. There's no winners and losers. It's just here is an issue. This is my argument based on these reasons. in which I came to this conclusion, okay? One example, one thing to consider, and I do give this as an example because it kind of helps you to understand that you can have an argument on both sides. When we say there's no winner and loser, we can bring it back to Julia Butterfly Hill and the loggers. And so if you don't know Julia Butterfly Hill, she lived up in a tree. She was chilling up there to try and save the trees because she cares about the trees and the environment and all that stuff. Like, thank you, Juliet, that's awesome. But now we got the loggers, and the loggers like, hey, man, we got to make a living. We need to take these trees down. And she's like, well, what about the trees? And they're like, well, what about my family? Right? It's not to say that either is wrong or right. They both have valid arguments based on reasons, right? So again, when we talk about arguments, we're looking at what reasons, what support do we have to make this argument valid? All right, and what are the consequences of making that decision? Okay, and that's a question for whatever issue you might have that you're considering. Do the loggers take that tree down? For them, they need the money, they need the trees, they need the whatever. But for Julia, it's like, yeah, but the longevity, we need this for our future children, and so on and so forth, right? So, right, that's where we're at. Okay, again, an opinion. The difference between an opinion and an argument is there's no supporting reasons in an opinion. And it's like an asshole. Everybody's got one. You knew that was coming. Okay. Also, yes, sometimes I cuss like a sailor, but that's just because I dance like one too. Okay? All right. Again, issue is the question or subject under discussion. Okay? And again, we don't argue with kooks. You know them when you see them because you try and have a conversation and they just like, there's something wrong. It's not going to be something that you're ever going to win the argument because they're set in their ways, and that's, it's just okay. You just don't waste your time. Okay? And again, topics, right? So Alpo's the topic. The issue is whether or not I feed my dog Alpo. Why am I repeating all this? Because I want you to know what I'm talking about here. And plus, there's going to be a quiz after. And I think a 20-minute video versus, a 2.5-minute video is just okay. All right, conclusion, make sure that you recognize that it is a position that you come to on an issue based on the reasons. Okay, you see what I'm doing here? Okay, cool. Biggest and, thing I just really want you to recognize is understanding what these vocabulary words and how we are going to apply them, because I'm going to drill them into your head as kindly as I can. And that's pretty much it. So go ahead and take a look at my lecture notes. The biggest thing, again, is just making sure that you're really comfortable understanding what the dialogue is and how you can form an argument based on reasons. Okay, and we'll go into all that as we move forward, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, thank you very much. I hope this was short, sweet, and simple to the best of my abilities, and I will see you for chapter 2 next.